Jesse Pomeroy, a 12-year-old boy who grew up in a normal household in Charleston, Massachusetts. His mother, a single mother of two, worked all the time to support her two sons after Jesse's father split when he was young. If you asked her, she would have told you that her son was a perfectly normal little boy and there was nothing wrong with him, but others told a different tale. Many of his neighbors told stories of Jesse's early childhood and how he wasn't like the other boys, preferring to be by himself and sometimes even refusing to socialize with the neighborhood kids. He could often be found reading old dime novels. One neighbor even said that she witnessed him breaking a cat's neck and tossing the body into a nearby river. His mother did, however, say that he had an accident with her canaries when he was a little. At the age of 5, he managed to behead her two pet canaries and then didn't have any excuse as to how it happened. He just said, "It happened." Now, that may seem like a decent excuse for a 5-year-old, but beheading two birds doesn't just happen on accident. At the age of 12, Jesse started to lure young boys, usually between the ages of 4 and 8, to a remote area on Powder House Hill. The boys were often later found with rope marks around their necks, various stab wounds received from either a knife or even small pins, and there were even some accounts of attempted mutilation where Jesse attempted to castrate young boys. After being identified by several of his victims, based on the glassy look of his right eye due to a condition when he was a newborn, he was then sent to the Westboro House of Reformation, where the judge thought he would be least likely to influence other children. During the trial, Jesse pled his innocence the whole time, but at the end eventually admitted guilt and was sentenced for the rest of his minority. After the trial was over, he started pleading his innocence once again. In the Reformation House, he was a model prisoner and was eventually let out into the custody of his mother 2 years later at the age of 14. Once out, his mother moved he and his brother to Boston, where she thought the news of his past wouldn't yet have reached. But it did. While the neighborhood was wary of Jesse being around, his mother preached of his wrongful arrest, and things somewhat went back to normal. Not long after they moved to Boston, there was a disappearance of a little girl, 10-year-old Katie Curran. Due to his background, the police went to Jesse as the first suspect, but after reports of someone seeing the young girl get into a car with an adult male and the lack of evidence found with Jesse at the time, they moved on and the case went unsolved. A few months later, the body of 4-year-old Horace Miller was found in the marshes down by Dorchester Bay between South Boston and Savin Hill by two little boys. The police arrived to a gruesome sight. They found the still warm body of the elementary school boy laying in the mud on his back with his pants around his ankles and blood oozing out of his eyes and other various wounds. The 4-year-old had about 33 stab wounds in total, all over his body and face, some even in his right eye. He had been cut almost ear to ear, nearly decapitating him. The boy had even been castrated, and when he was lifted from the mud, the testicles tumbled to the ground. Obviously, due to his history, the police went straight to Jesse and found marsh mud on his boots and pants that could only be from the place where the boy was found, along with a muddy and bloody knife. When questioned if he did it, Jesse's reply was, "I guess so." His only request was that they didn't tell his mother of his latest crime. As the police were searching his house and even his mother's dress store in town, they noticed a putrid smell coming from the basement of the boutique. After she sold the store a month later, the body of 10-year-old Katie Curran was found in the rubble of the basement. The only form of identification was the pink dress her parents had dressed her in the day of her disappearance. Jesse later confessed to her murder only because he didn't want anybody to think his mother had anything to do with it. Jesse spent the rest of his life in prison in solitary confinement. He died at the age of 72, 2 months shy of his 73rd birthday. Throughout his prison life, he constantly sent requests to any and every judge for his release. They were all denied. Jesse wasn't diagnosed with any disorders, but it's suspected that he was a psychopath. There's no proof, and no doctor ever diagnosed him with anything.